This is the best show ever. Philadelphia Sports Talk. 97.5 The Fanatic.
97.5 The Fanatic. NBC Sports Philadelphia. Best show ever. Word of the day today is predictable. Been talking about the Eagles and how this season has been successful, but not predictable. They've won a lot of different ways from a lot of different characters. 4 o'clock hours brought to you by Landis Block, your one-stop shop to create a jaw-dropping outdoor paradise. Online at landisbc.com. And right when Tim gets ready to come on with his Jordan Mailata activated,
Yep.
We expected it once they cut Stoll, who was that roster spot for. I mean, he was on QVC a week ago selling Christmas albums, so I thought that hamstring must have been feeling good. So it's perfect timing. He does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com and 97.5 The Fanatic. Mr. Tim McManus on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing today, Tim?
Doing well, Ty. How about you?
Doing really well, man. So our word of the day today is predictable, and what we've been talking about is going into the season, there were so many questions going into this game tomorrow. And against Washington, short week with a chance to get to 8-2 and really take a stranglehold on the division. Of everything, Tim, that of the surprises so far, which one are you most surprised by? And the reason I ask that is we're getting our news from you. You're down there. You're down at training camp. You were talking about this player looks good, this player, that, et cetera, et cetera. On the path to 7-2, as a beat writer, what's been the most surprising thing or unpredictable thing that's happened for you?
Oh, man, it's got to be the defense. It's got to be the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they lose Fletcher Cox and they lose Hassan Reddick. You're getting an upgrade at defensive coordinator with Vic Fangio, but you're relying on guys like that we had hardly any familiarity with, like Zach Bond. The first, remember that? Like Fangio, the first linebacker comes out of his mouth is Zach Bond, and we're all looking at each other like, who's that? I thought he was supposed to be an edge rusher. So guys like him, rookies like Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean thought that they had talent and that they had a future, but we didn't realize that they were going to be like difference makers as soon as they jumped onto the field. So it's got to be the defense for me. I mean, we knew that there was potential just coming out their ears on offense because of the talent level and the amount that they've invested in there. But defense was a big question mark. And man, like who would have thought that would be like a top 5 defense, at least to this point?
All right, you look at the Commanders that you have tomorrow. How big of a problem is Jaden Daniels?
He's a big problem. And it's not just because he has, the dynamic ability with his legs, but he's also able to carve you up through the air, and he's not turning the ball over. Ricky, he only has 2 picks, to this point in the season. So he's being very smart with the football while also pushing the ball down the field and then being creative. I thought it was really interesting talking with Vic Fangio this week, and I asked him, how much he was looking at that Pittsburgh tape. They played the Steelers last week. The Steelers did a really good job on Daniels. He only had 5 rushing yards on 3 attempts. And the one thing that he pointed to was the talent at the edge for the Steelers. That's TJ Watt and Highsmith, and basically saying that was a big key to why they were able to kind of contain Daniels. And that's why I'm really interested to see how it sort of manifests on Thursday night, because as we know, that's not really the strength of the Eagles is on the edge. And we know that Pittsburgh has having to play Lamar Jackson twice a year. They're really good at honing in on quarterbacks that are mobile. Whereas the Eagles this year haven't really dealt with that too much. And so one of the multitude of reasons why I think this matchup is fascinating to see how Fangio handles that element and to see if the edge rushers are kind of up to the task.
That will be something to watch. Now, Jalen Hurts, I want to ask about him because he had the turnovers. I think, honestly, that son that some of the Cowboys were complaining about, CeeDee Lamb especially, I think that played a role in him struggling a little bit early. But then he settles down. You look up at the end, another 115 quarterback rating game and 4 total touchdowns. How is Jalen able to shake these moments off? Because I know he talks about keeping the main thing, and all those cliches, but then he goes out there and actually does it where other quarterbacks might implode or say it's not his day. He seems to, more often than not, fight back.
I think that's totally right. And I think we've come to know him. He's definitely got a high level of resiliency, so that's a part of it. He is able to sort of troubleshoot in real time, and that's a big deal too. He understands what a defense is doing. and they're able to figure out answers to it and then execute it. And so those are obviously all real positive traits. There has been somewhat of a trend of this offense clearly starting out slowly, first quarter points for a while. They weren't getting any. We know that. Hurts in particular seemed like there's like a ramp up period to where he hits his stride. And then, man, when he hits his stride over the last handful of weeks, he's been really cooking. But, now they're getting into a different part of their schedule. So they handled their business beautifully over the last 5 weeks. They go 5-0 against lesser opponents. That's all you can ask of them is for them to handle their business, and some of them in dominating fashion where they're able to rest players at the end. So that's all awesome. But now they're going up against the Commanders, and they're going to have the Ravens, and they're going to have the Steelers, and they're going to have the Rams on the road. And the margin for error shrinks. So while Hurts has been doing a lot of good things, and, your point's a great one, Ty, of like he's able to come back, don't put the offense in the position where you have to come back all the time. You got to get off to quicker starts, because at some point when you go against playoff caliber teams, it's going to end up biting you.
All right, I got to ask you, Quinyon Mitchell has been outstanding, one of the best in the league. You look at Cooper DeJean, same thing. I mean, these guys have stepped in and gotten the job done. We saw what happened with Jalen Carter later in the year last year. Is there any nerves about, the whole rookie thing and the longer NFL season that these two guys could slow down?
That's a good point. I mean, with Carter, he this year is, he definitely hit that wall last year, and now he's eating a lot more snaps. Fangio is really using him quite a bit, and so you wonder if he fades a little bit down the stretch. That is in the back of my mind is whether he's getting overused. But when it comes to Mitchell and DeJean, I don't know that corner you're going to have exactly the same level of wear and tear. And it's just like they've aced every test so highly so far that I guess that my confidence has just gone up where, I'm not really having any kind of concerns against them. And it's funny how it has evolved where when I'm talking with, beat writers from the other team, leading into the week as we're exchanging notes. And I've gotten this question multiple times now, does Quinyon Mitchell follow, the best receiver? Think of how far we've come. Slay is on the other side, and people keep asking me that, which really speaks to this high level of play that he has achieved. And this week is going to be a really good test because Terry McLaurin typically stays on the left side. Over 70% of the snaps are going to be on the side that Quinyon Mitchell is at. So he's going to get kind of a full plate of one of the better receivers in the league, and that's going to be a matchup that's just going to be entertaining.
We're speaking with Tim McManus. He does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com and 97.5 The Fanatic. The head coach, what we're noticing is, as we get further away from the collapse last season, I try to look at his whole body of work. And he's even been frustrating some this year. But for whatever reason, for the most part, I guess last year notwithstanding, the guys seem to follow him. They seem to rally around him. And they seem to, maybe when we're getting frustrated, it doesn't always seem they're frustrated with him. What does Nick Sirianni have, being that you're around him much more than we are, that maybe we're missing out on? Because we did a poll earlier this week. They thought if the number one reason the Eagles wouldn't win the Super Bowl was still the head coach, yet it doesn't seem like the locker room questions him nearly as much as the fans do.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of tests he has to pass, right, Tyler? There definitely have been head-scratching moments that have been well documented over the course of this season that have, either come close to costing them games or you could argue have. So, there's still a lot of hills need to be climbed for Sirianni, but there's obviously, to your point, some strengths to this head coach. And if you're watching now, you're seeing that the team is vibing. Whether it's off of turnovers and they have their choreographed celebrations or post game where they're all like that Jordan Davis dance I'm sure you saw where they're all in there doing along. You could just it's there's a much lighter air this year relative to last year. And Sirianni deserves some of the credit for the way that he has gone about establishing the culture. Now, clearly it took a step back last year, but I think he recognized that. And now that he's less involved in the offense, he's absolutely more involved in making sure that players are in a good headspace and that the team is connected. I think a good example of that is the fact that we've learned that over the course of the bye week, not only was he meeting with Jalen Hurts like a ton, going over and like troubleshooting things together to get on the same page, which we know was key after a rocky year last year, but also taking inventory from the offensive line who came to him to implore him to start relying on them more, leaning on them more, leaning into the run game, get back to the way that it was his first year in 2021, where they started going more run heavy and had a positive result off of it. So he's listening to his players, he's empowering his players, and he's making sure that everybody's in a good place. So that's not everything as a head coach, but he's passing that test, and I would say acing that test so far on that side of it. So that's a big reason why you see why players grab his back, is because he's very quick to grab theirs.
All right, number one, is this the toughest matchup of the year for the Eagles in general? And number two, if they win this game and play a very solid game and they look really good, you think everybody starts to jump on this bandwagon?
Yeah, to the second part, I think people are ready. Like, people like myself, not that I'm going to go bandwagon one way or another, but want to see like a quality win against, a couple of these opponents coming up, like to be like, all right, are they as legit as we're seeing or think that we're seeing right now? And I think, the fans are just going to be ready to be like, yeah, man, let's go. You're already hearing like the Super Bowl chatter start to pick up after that dominating win against the Cowboys being their fifth straight. So yeah, people are definitely juiced up for it. I would say it's probably their biggest test to date. You can argue Green Bay in the opener, but that's week one and everything's a little unsettled at that point. But Washington has shown to be a formidable opponent, and they got a number of them coming up. But this is a big one, man. I mean, if they can win this one and get a little bit of breathing room in the NFC, not a lot, but at least a little bit, they set themselves up. Now the conversation becomes, can they track down the Lions? Like, is that a possibility? Can they get the number one seed? Like, what are we talking about? Is this like, is this like one of the top two teams in the NFC? That's the conversation that starts. If they stumble, it's a step back for them, and then the Sirianni stuff comes up again, and the Jalen Hurts stuff comes up. But if they're able to beat a quality opponent in a big spotlight game in November, then yeah, I think everything's going to be rolling.
Well, Tim, we really appreciate all the knowledge as usual with the midweek report. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. That was Tim McManus on the Comcast Business Hotline. Does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com and 97.5 The Fanatic. I believe that this is the fourth best team on their schedule that they're facing this
year. I just believe it's a huge game.
It's a big game, but I think the Packers that they've already beat are better. I think Pittsburgh, who just beat them, are better than them, and they just beat them head-to-head, and they'll be on the schedule. And I think the Ravens are better.
And that game was in Washington, too.
So I think this is the fourth toughest game, but they've already beaten one of the teams that I think are tougher in Green Bay, with still Pittsburgh and the Ravens to go. And I think the Rams' spot is tough. I don't think the Rams are a great team, but I think when the game falls in between Washington and the Ravens is a tough spot to play them.
Yeah,
I definitely agree.
There's something about the Steelers. They always seem to end up, in the thick of things. And
Great coach. They have a great head coach.
And Russell Wilson has kind of found a little bit of a fountain of youth over there with Tomlin, too. So, they're a tough team. The Ravens, obviously, are a tough team, but they've been up and down. We've seen them really kind of poop some games away.
All the games left are winnable. All of them are left are winnable.
Yeah. The one thing that I think that the Eagles really have the edge over on the Commanders is also the fact that they have a good defense.
Yeah, Washington, I don't know about. The other part is
not good against the run, I'll tell you that.
The defense.
I think you're going to see
the other part is the quarterback is good, but what's being written more and more is that they don't fear him. Because remember, the Bears should have beat them, and the Bears are not a great team.
Yep.
Pittsburgh did. Teams apparently don't fear him. That doesn't mean he's not good. But Jalen Hurts, because of there's a certain amount of fear factor that comes with certain quarterbacks, and he very well could be a Hall of Fame guy. This is a rookie year. But Fangio probably has something for him he hasn't seen versus when they play Matt Stafford or Russell Wilson. You're probably not going to show those guys much that they haven't already seen.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm very interested to see how Vic Fangio is going to attack him. And I think, having someone who is a veteran defensive coordinator, one of the best in the league. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Jaden Daniels looks.
Now,
I'm very eager to see this matchup in general.
I'm telling you, to me, this is a big game for Fangio. Only because I do still have some concerns about the style of the defense.
Yep, me too. Not my favorite.
Quarterbacks are comfortable. He doesn't like bringing more than 4, et cetera, et cetera. He should probably have something, though, even bringing 4 to confuse the rookie. Not 70 times. We're talking about 2 or 3 times in the game.
Enough so it puts it in the back of his mind.
Yeah, and in a big spot, 3rd and 8. He thinks this is this. He thinks it's zone. It turns out to be man. It's incomplete. It's batted down. It's intercepted, et cetera. Something like that.